Hey everybody, this is Jeff Newton. I just have a couple topics I want to talk to you about tonight. I know it's late, it's Monday night. You guys, some of you sleepyheads probably won't get this until Tuesday morning. My apologies, it's been a long day. Cutting trails and paths up in Virginia backcountry on our campground up here, but better late than never. I want to talk about some judicial nominees and some other judicial business and some attaboys for the mainstream media, which we always like to ship back. I'm Jeff Newton, former 60 Minutes producer, former senior producer at Vice on HBO National Geographic Television. So I think one of these stories has been greatly overlooked last week. Some of you might have seen some things on, but if you haven't, it's really stunning. Remember we talked the last couple days about how Donald Trump really doesn't care about what the laws are. He'll concede whatever law he wants to follow will be the one that he either wins something, but he's not going to follow the law if he doesn't want to. If it works in his favor, he'll follow it and say, I'm a law-abiding guy. But if it doesn't work in his favor, he will not. And so last week we had the Senate Judiciary Committee where 4 of his federal judicial nominees were put in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee for questions about confirmation and so forth. And here's what Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, asked John Mark. John Mark's one of the 4 who was sitting at the table in front of him. And he had basically his question for all 4 nominees. He started with John Marks. He says, he asked them, is there any scenario where you can see Trump running? Could he run for a 3rd term? Okay. And we traditionally always know American presidents can only have 2 terms in office, right? This is often referred to as the FDR amendment. You know, remember federal, when FDR ran for president and successfully won 4 presidencies. So after that, they put an amendment that said otherwise. And so he asked these judicial nominees this, and John Marks said, Senator, without considering all the facts and looking at everything depending on the situation, what situation it is, this strikes me as more of a hypothetical. And then Coons asked him again, and kind of clarified, and he said it was hypothetical. He didn't want to, jump out on a limb and say, And then Coons then said, are there any other nominees at the table there, the other 3, that would be willing to, walk the plank and suggest, the obvious that he can't run for more than the second two terms. And none of them said anything. All right, none of them jumped forward and said, well, of course he can't run for more than 2 terms. Remember, Mark said, without considering all the facts and looking at everything depending on what the situation is, this strikes me as more of a hypothetical. So the 22nd Amendment's pretty clear. No person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. Let me read that to you again, because it's maybe this guy who's running for the spot here, this Trump appointee, initial nominee, is confusing the language because it's very complicated, isn't it? Super complicated. Let me just read it again so we can get rid of some of this ambiguity. No person, and I think Trump's a person, shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Does that sound ambiguous to you? Because apparently to John Marks, Marks sounded really ambiguous without considering all the facts and looking at everything. So these, depending on what situation this is, strikes me as more of a hypothetical. Well, yeah, it's hypothetical because nobody runs for a 3rd term, right? Because it's against the third. I'm going to read this one more time. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. There's also provision in there if you're like vice president, you're elevated to president, what happens there? So like say you're Vice President Vance, Trump dies in office, and he becomes president for 2 years. He can't run more than 1 more term. That's also very unambiguous. But yeah, so, and nobody else on this panel of Trump's handpicked judges could figure out that sentence, I guess, and actually they asked him, do you know what the 22nd Amendment is? And he initially didn't know what the 22nd Amendment was. He sort of shrugged his shoulders and he kind of implied he wasn't sure because he'd been in criminal defense, and he, quote, hasn't been able to use that one specifically. Fuck. Woo. I mean, what do you even say? So this is, again, Trump doesn't want to obey the law. He has no intention of obeying the law. And he's putting judges in the offices to be lifetime appointments who will not obey the United States Constitution. That thing that governs all of us. I just want you to see the picture of this guy. Look at his character. Apparently that guy doesn't understand this sentence. No person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. Okay, this is fucking bad news, right? Happening all up and down the board. Every time they get asked a question that's obvious, they don't seem to know the obvious answer. So that's one judicial thing I want you guys to consider, because we've said they will not obey the law unless it's in their favor. Okay? Never, ever, 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 ever are they going to obey the law unless it's in their favor. So let's remember that going into the midterms. Okay. Another one's, the Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, you know him, Mr. Nice Guy, we'll call him, on Monday put a 1-week hold on major changes of how the abortion pill mifepristone can be prescribed. The ruling temporarily restores nationwide access to the drug for most medical abortions in the U.S. So this all started when a judge in Louisiana, a Trump-appointed judge, by the way, in Louisiana, ruled against the FDA. The state's argument centered around the FDA's decision several years ago to remove in-person requirements for patients to use the drug. So you didn't have to be in person. You could just get it over the counter. Sort of like, the blue pill all these old men are using, right? To get their, so they don't go, so they can do that online. But when it comes to the abortion drug, Louisiana judge appointed by Trump said, you can't do that. So Alito stepped in, Mr. Nice Guy, and said, nope, we're going to put a stay on that decision for 1 week and give both sides a chance to file some briefs on this one. So thank you, Samuel, white conservative judge, for allowing women in the United States to decide on their own how they're going to deal with their own bodies for 1 more week till May 11th, 6 p.m. There you go. So he's being helpful. He's giving women the right to choose and figure out how they want to deal with their own pregnancies until May 11th. What are we whining about, right? White guys, men? He's giving you a week. Work quick. Nice guys, these judicial nominee. Again, remember, he's a Chief Justice, he's a Supreme Court Justice. He's got a lifetime appointment. I would just note, I just did a quick little bit of research. An abortion law was passed in Louisiana that made it restrictive, very restrictive, one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the United States. And I just did some quick numbers real fast. The Louisiana House has 105 members, 79 are men, 28 are women. The Senate has 39 members, 35 are men, 4 are women. That's 144 total in the Louisiana legislature, of which 114 are men and 30 are women. So 79% male, 21% female, roughly. So let's just, whew. Sweet of you, Justice Alito. So sweet of you. Good. Thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts for allowing your Christian nationalism to be put to the side until May 11th at 6 p.m. All right, on to some more happy news. Mainstream media, we kicked the shit out of them all the time, right? As we should, because they're really faltering. But you know that I don't really kick the shit out of the newspaper industry too much. I'm really a big fan of, newspapers. I started in newspapers. I spent a lot of my career in newspapers as a newspaper reporter. Pulitzer Prizes came out, and some good reporting. I'm not going to name them all, but Chicago Tribune won one for their chronicles of the ice sweeps in their city. The Pulitzer Board also gave a special citation, to the Miami Herald journalist Julie K. Brown. We've talked about her on our broadcast before. She did a lot of reporting of her work in 2017, 2018 on the Epstein files. She's the premier reporter in the country on the Epstein files. And she did a bulk of this work in 2017 and 18 and continues to do it today, investigating the Jeffrey Epstein scandal and his systemic abuse of young women. The crimes, the repercussions, all of it. So it only took the Pulitzer Board 8 years. But thank you. Better late than never. Investigative reporting, one of the categories, awarded the New York Times. Well, I love New York Times, for their deeply reported stories that exposed President Trump's shattered constraints of conflicts of interest and exploited the money-making opportunities that come with power, enriching his family and allies. Investigative reporting. They had another one, investigative reporting, but this one's my favorite. And if we think about we always talk about nobody's doing any reporting on these things. Well, they are. They're doing it. New York Times is doing reporting on it, and they just won a Pulitzer Prize for it. So let's remember that when you're thinking of how you're going to spend your money in terms of educating yourself about what's going on in the news. Local reporting. Now, this was a tricky one. The stuff that happened with ICE, Chicago Tribune won for local reporting. They were in a different category, and the Pulitzer Committee, sometimes they move them to another category. So that's where they won. They won it for local reporting. It's very unusual for a large metropolitan paper. But also awarded were Dave Aldemari and Jenny Monk, Connecticut Mirror, and Sophie Chow and Hara Corin of ProPublica. They do a lot of joint ventures there. And my buddy John Sullivan works at ProPublica, so I'm proud of his publication, for an impressive series on exposing how the state's unique towing laws favored unscrupulous companies that overcharge residents, prompting swift and meaningful consumer protections, which I think is cool. Not enough good consumer protection stuff going around there. And we all hate the towing business, right? So they're screwing people over by towing their stuff. And with all the stuff going on in the news these days, these stories usually get lost. And it's good to see the Pulitzer Board recognizing a story like that. National reporting awarded to the staff of Reuters for documenting how the president used the U.S. government to influence supporters to expand executive power and exact vengeance on his foes. So, good news for Reuters, a company that I used to work for at the beginning of the Afghan war. So, congratulations to them. Those are my main ones. Breaking news photography, you always got to name it. There's a couple photography categories, but the breaking news I always like. And this one, remember we talked about everybody's forgetting Gaza, so this was awarded to Sahir Aghara, contributor to the New York Times, for his haunting, sensitive series showing the devastation and starvation in Gaza resulting from the war with Israel. So congratulations, Sahir, for some great work. Hope you see this somewhere. Public service awarded the Washington Post for piercing the veil of secrecy around the Trump administration's chaotic overhaul of federal agencies, and you remember Doge and all that stuff, and chronicling the rich detail of the human impacts of the cuts and the consequences for the country. So, big news, it's a really big deal. So, congratulations to some of those Pulitzer winners. If you want to see a full list of them, go on the Pulitzer website and look them up. There's a lot of really good work that's being done. And, I always talk about independent media and how it's doing great work, but let's not forget some of this stuff is being done by mainstream people, mainstream journalists, mainstream reporters, mainstream news organizations. And follow the news of newspapers. They do great work. All right. News of the day. Iran. The United States military said it fired on Iranian forces and sank 6 small boats targeting civilian ships as it moved through the Strait of Hormuz. So there you go. U.S. military said 2 American-flagged merchant ships had successfully transited the Strait of Hormuz on Monday as part of a new initiative. 2. That leaves a couple thousand more? Good job, Pete Hegseth. And, we're we're above $120 a barrel for Brent crude now. So congratulations. We were at $2.50 around there when it came to gas prices. Today in my town, it was $4.50. So good job. 2 ships got them through. Congratulations. In the meantime, the United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry said its air defenses had engaged 15 missiles and 4 drones fired by Iran. So apparently the ceasefire's over. Is it over? Nobody's claimed it's over, but it's over because they're firing on U.S. allies. Again, congrats, Pete. The Iranian authorities didn't confirm the attacks, but said on early Tuesday, meaning there it's early. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi said on X that both the United States and the UAE should be wary of being dragged back into the quagmire. Hadn't planned on attacking them, but when the U.S. military started escorting ships through, they went. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. So the war continues, even though it's not continuing apparently. Just think about how shipping companies are going to feel, because just in the last few hours, they attacked some. I think it was the British reported some stuff that they saw a couple tankers in the near the passage on fire. So, sorry, I'm getting distracted by my dog looking through the window, staring at me through the window. Oh, jeez. Yeah. So, ceasefire began nearly a month ago. Commercial planes, after this attack in the UAE, all the commercial planes in the area turned around and flew home. As warned, ships passing through the strait must coordinate with them. Yeah, Iran's still saying anybody wanting to go through has to coordinate with them. In other words, pay them. And they said, quote, "We warn any foreign military force, especially the aggressive United States military, that intends to approach or enter Straight of Hormuz will be targeted." So there you go. There's your ceasefire. Iran's latest proposal ending the war calls for U.S. to lift sanctions, ending the blockade, withdrawing forces from the region. Withdrawing forces from the region. We have permanent forces in the region. So Iran wants them all. Get rid of them. Probably not going to happen. So that's pretty tough proposal. And of course, Trump said that was dead on arrival. And ceasing all hostilities, including Israel's operations in Lebanon. Yep. So, war in Iran. That's your update. Okay. Spirit Airlines. Hear about that? Remember, we were going to try to acquire 90% of that company, and Donald Trump was really pushing for that deal to go through. And it was a $500 million loan bailout he was trying to get to pass through. I wonder why he was doing that. Well, today, or actually it was Saturday, Spirit shuttered. It's over. It's done. That great experiment. It's actually the first major airline to go out of business in more than 25 years. And it was, why? Well, their reorganization deal that was being put forth, that hopefully it was going to give them this $500 million, its restructuring plan assumed jet fuel costs at $2.24 a gallon. But for some reason, prices climbed to $4.51 a gallon by the end of April due to the Iran war. Whose fault was that? The Iran war. Oh, yeah. So the price of fuel went up. Spirit was going out of business. Donald tried to save them because he sent the price of fuel up by invading Iran, bombing Iran. And then the kibosh was put on by Republicans. The Republicans didn't want the deal to go through. A creditor close to the deal said Trump administration made an extraordinary effort to try to save Spirit, but you can't save, and you can't breathe life into a corpse. So, yeah, Republicans, members of Congress, and they got backlash from Republicans in Congress. Well, I wonder why. Because when you take over a private company and you put it under government control, I wonder why. Does that sound like what's that word? Communism? Sounds like communism. Wonder why the Republicans were against that. They seem to like Vladimir Putin lately. Anyways, could be the communism, or it could be the big bailout because it sets bad precedents when all these other airlines are going to go out of business. The human toll, just 17,000 workers out of their jobs. Good job, Donald. 14,000 Spirit employees and a shitload more contractors. So, what? Donald Trump, by the way, he had an airline at once too, right? Trump Airline. Didn't that go bankrupt? So he loves bankrupting airlines, apparently. My last one for the night. Pete Hegseth. He recently was in front of Congress, and he basically said that in the 2020 elections, the 2024 elections, Biden put troops, deployed them. This is a quote from him. Biden, Hegseth claimed that in 2024, troops were deployed to polling stations in 15 states. This is where I applaud CNN, another Main Street organization that I love to shitbag because they're doing shitty work lately, and they're getting ready to be acquired by that evil network, Paramount Skydance, that owns CBS now. So Pete says in 2024, troops were deployed to polling stations in 15 states under the Biden administration. He repeated this claim twice under oath in a congressional hearing. CNN fact checker Daniel Dale, he contacted all 15 states Hegseth referenced. Every single state responded, said the same thing. No troops were deployed to polling stations. Not one. Not one. Iowa's National Guard spokesperson put it plainly. We have never gone to a polling station as part of an election. Okay? I'm just going to go through these. Arizona Guard said 2 personnel were on cybersecurity standby. No such request to be in polling stations was ever made. That's a quote. Pennsylvania. No Pennsylvania National Guard members were located at polling stations. End quote. North Carolina. No personnel deployed to polling stations. That's what they said in North Carolina National Guard. West Virginia. Quote, we do not have personnel present at polling stations. Delaware, Illinois, Mexico, New Mexico, all the same thing. So, some of the states said their guard wasn't even formally activated. Oregon pointed out it conducts election entirely by mail, making the claim by Hegseth even more absurd, right? Because they don't even have polling stations. They do it all by mail. What a liar. Remember, I say Hegseth lies. And this time he lied twice under oath, which is a felony, by the way. And Defense Department, for some reason, chose not to respond to CNN's request for comment. Why did they do that for? Do you think maybe that's why Pete doesn't like to have the Pentagon press corps anymore? Because they're going to ask him questions like, can you explain this lie to us? But you can still write them and ask them, right? Hey, Pete, did you know that we asked all these states and they all said you're a liar? Okay. Man, that's all I have for you guys tonight. You know? That's all I have for you. I was going to talk about all the pardons that have happened, because there's some new news about some more pardons that he gave to the January 6 people, and yet another guy's going to prison. But I'll do that tomorrow. Sounds like a good story to do. I'm at 23 minutes. I don't want to wear you out on a Monday night. You're probably already getting ready to go to bed. But anyways, thank you, everybody. Again, like, follow, and share on Substack if you like what we're doing. And largely, this thing tonight was done through a lot of just searching for the stories that are important to me this week and coming up with some good reporting done by mainstream people. So don't, let's give them a break. They were doing some good work, especially the CNN thing right here. It was great. You know how hard it is to get National Guard people on the phone to give you a comment on anything, and you go through 15 states to do it, just so you can prove what the Secretary of Defense said was true or not. Good reporting, good basic reporting. That's all it takes. So we're proud of these guys and all they're doing. And congratulations to Julie K. Brown for her special citation, 8 years too late from the Pulitzer Committee. All right, like, follow, and share. Follow us on Substack under From the Writer's Cabin. I'm calling you right from the Writer's Cabin here tonight. And comment. Let us know what you think. Have a great night.